if you do hire somebody, it still takes intelligence to decide that you got to hire somebody. So it's not less smart to hire somebody. It's actually almost more smart to hire somebody and value your time.
So the big craze right now is artificial intelligence. And what can AI do for me? That's the question that every single real estate investor, real estate agent, even consumer is asking on what can real estate do for me? Pritesh, when you and I were starting to talk, I have been polling various real estate agents, and I've been asking what are the tools that they're experimenting with right now? And what I want to do is I want to throw these at you because you have an amazing perspective, both as a technology visionary, but you also know how this stuff gets implemented, but you also know from a product perspective whether or not someone's going to use it. So what is going to be amazing here is I'd love for your perspective on a few of these tools. And if you could talk about it in two ways. Way number one is what you think about the technology, its viability, et cetera, and kind of how it works. And number two, is it even valuable and is it going to become a part of our daily lives? I think those two would be really interesting for people to hear. But before we get into this, I know you've seen a lot of tools. Any broad comments on the tools that are being built? And are we going to see more sustainability of these tools in the future?
Yeah, I think it goes back to like apes run out of shapes. You know that, well, where you have like the adapters, when everybody started launching these adapters that went into the iPhone and you would swipe. It's in that book, Zero to One. Peter Thiel talks about this. It's like, so how many different variations of the same idea, and all of them are using this ready-made AI engine that they didn't build. So what's the value, right? I think we're going to see fragmentation and saturation in a lot of ideas. And then we're going to see fancy stuff that people will build and I think nobody will use. Like I literally just see it.
Well, I want to talk about that one thing, because what I'm seeing right now in several of the applications that both you and I use, we use Superhuman for email, and suddenly this AI feature showed up. And I'm a fairly super user of Superhuman, but you had to tell me how to actually use that feature, because I didn't even know that they had released it. And I didn't even know that you hit M and it like summarizes your thread. And what I'm seeing in a lot of these tools is maybe a Superhuman or a Notion or a Canva, is that suddenly you see this logo for, that sparkle logo for the AI, but I don't know what it does, or there's no education around it. And so it feels like there's some self-discovery needed to actually explore and learn. How do you see that happen? Like, how do you see that happening from a product perspective, where does there have to be a functional reason to implement a piece of artificial intelligence, or is this the craze where if you don't have the artificial intelligence checkbox, you're kind of falling behind?
Well, I think we might be in that phase where a lot of startups are doing. It's like the Bitcoin era, right? Like where everybody was everything was an NFT. You're not storing your title on an NFT, or you must be crazy, right? So it's not that bad in my opinion, but it's kind of there. It's because everybody underneath is using some sort of ready-made GPT, whether it's ChatGPT or the Anthropic version or like the Llama or whatever, right? Like they're using some ready-made stuff underneath. However, I will say in some cases it makes sense. So as a business, you kind of have to ask yourself, hey, am I going to build GPT, which takes millions of dollars to even do one run, right? Or am I going to use it in a meaningful way? So the example that you gave, like the Superhuman email, it actually does things in a meaningful way. Like it does summarize it. We use a couple of the tools that like do a great job at summarizing emails. They also get it wrong, right? Like that's the best part. Like the summarization, like the AI gets it wrong sometimes. So you actually have to proofread this thing. So it's not bulletproof. What I like the most about Superhuman is like I write sometimes I like, hey man, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in your service. And then AI will just like make it nicer. But you will use, that I think there's some value to that, right? Like, but I will say that there are some startups that need to exist that will do really well. But I'm seeing hyper fragmentation in those markets already, like hyper fragmentation. So I think the challenge is how do they survive, make meaningful revenue, even though the idea is great. So it goes back to the conversation of, is it a feature or a product?
That's good.
Is it a feature or a product, right? Like if it's a feature, you're not going to survive as a company. It might be hot for a little bit, But as soon as it becomes a feature of some other product, you're screwed, right? But if it's a product, then it's really, so ChatGPT is a product, for example. But like there are things out there that I consider features. Let's talk about one example. Like, for example, I think like something that's here to stay is a staging idea, staging your apartment or staging your home for sale, right? What is it? Like you used to spend anywhere from $250 to $550, $600 to get perfect staging done, or maybe sometimes thousands of dollars to get perfect staging done, and then photograph. So now all of that is replaced with good photography, uploaded into AI, and it will stage it for you. It will be like, what kind of furniture do you want? Contemporary, boom.
Yeah.
Put the whole staging in. It gets it nearly perfect, right? And even if it charges you $1 per photo, I think you should be happy to pay like $20 and get 20 photos.
Well, and I will tell you this. I'm actually a really big fan of the AI-based staging. And I will tell you, there is a real estate professional listening to this show right now and thinking, oh no, I can't do that. That is against the MLS rules. That is against the code of thing. And I'm like, here, just disclose. Like disclosure is disarming. No one wants you to not stage it. All they don't want is they're saying don't misrepresent. That's all they're saying. So if you have made multiple pictures based on AI, there's several things that you can do. You can write it in the note saying several of these pictures were generated by AI. That's one thing. The second thing, if you really want to be in a disclosure-based setting, is on the bottom, you can put a tiny little watermark that says, this room was staged with artificial intelligence. Just tell them the truth, because people can visualize the space. You're making it easier for them. And no one will get mad if you disclose more. And I think that people love it if they just find the disclosure. In fact, Pritesh, if you and I saw a home that was staged by AI and the agent had disclosed it, we would be even more impressed with them that they utilize that tool to stage the home and disclose it as well.
No, absolutely. Like I would be impressed that I would be impressed. Like not only I appreciate the honesty, but I would be impressed that they actually went above and beyond to like just stage this thing for you, right? Like, and not to forget, like if they didn't stage it with AI, then they would be coming to you asking you for like a $2,000 staging company to come in and like put fake furniture in your house and on the way in and out damage your walls. That's the best part, right?
And I think that the power in this is also pretty amazing for potential, like you and I are in real estate investors, potential investors. If someone was doing a flip and I don't want them to spend X amount of time like restaging to give me a visualization of what this flip could be, if they took the bones of the flip and showed me what it could potentially look like as a finished product, that would make me a much more apt to invest in something, because it lets me visualize something that I can't see right now, which is super powerful.
I totally agree. But going back to like it's a great idea, right? But now we see, I think I at least know like 20 or 30 companies doing this. So now the problem is like, say there were like anywhere from like 5 million homes sold, and say all of them got like AI, there's enough market, right? But not everybody needs staging. So once you like crush those numbers down, and then you have these companies trying to do this staging, or even 3D tours was like the thing, right? Where there were a lot of companies outside of Matterport who did 3D and 3D stitching and stuff like that for you, like a scene stitching to make it like a 3D tour. The market is so fragmented that if you're a new company coming in, like try to convince some agent to like use your tool versus the other, because they're nearly performing the same way, and then you're trying to argue that 1% efficiency on my tool better than your tool.
The other applications, you were looking into a piece of AI that was helping the roofing industry.
Oh yeah, that was it actually, like, I will not say that I have tested it, but I will say that if it works, it's pretty incredible. And this is like one of those examples where you're like, oh man, like why I don't think about it? But like, again, it's not. It's like they fly a drone on top of your roof. They take very detailed videos and pictures, right? And then they put in the AI engine to identify which portions of your roof need work. And then they will create an estimate on the fly and send it to you. Like that is straight up, capital, like humans time hour savings, right? Like you don't have to send anybody with a ladder, with a car, go up, put the ladder on the house, climb up, take pictures, and like all that, right? I'm sure it's not like extremely accurate, but I'm sure like the error margin is probably 10%.
Well, it's super interesting. There was a more of a non-AI based use case of something similar in the past, where one of my friends is actually runs a pool cleaning company. in Orange County. So when Google Earth originally came out, he just pulled up Google Earth and he saw every home that had a pool. And he literally just marked each of those homes and click download, and it just downloaded the addresses because he just marked all the homes. And that was his mailing campaign, because otherwise, how do you know if a home has a pool or not? So he just used Google Earth to map all these pools. Now, it sounds like, when in retrospect, it sounds like, oh yeah, that was a smart thing to do. But I will tell you right now, there's several pool contractors that are not doing that. In fact, the opposite is true as well. So if you are a pool contractor builder, not a pool cleaner, and if you ran a drone above or did Google Earth and you saw every home in a neighborhood that did not have a pool, you should market to them. You shouldn't just do EDDM, because it makes so much sense, because you can say your neighbor has a pool and you don't.
Not only that, like, I mean, imagine you're like a pool, like you have a pool cleaning service. You're just flying a drone around all over in St. Pete, where every home has a pool, and just look at the blueness of the pool. It will tell you which pools need cleaning.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Right? I mean, there's so much you could do. But those are scalable, non-scalable, human things scalable with AI.
That brings me to a wild question, which seems to be a very specific real estate use case, which is the kind of chatbot-ish feeling on either the portals or IDX feeds. So what is your feeling on that?
I don't know, man. I mean, this is where I think, like, it's one of those apes run out of shapes. Like, you got to, like, check the box because you got to put some AI on it and you can't think about something. I got recently targeted on the Zillow app saying, search with, like, some AI intelligence, right? Show me homes in St. Petersburg next to a coffee shop. Who buys homes like that?
No one.
Like, I mean, in real life, do you ever buy a home like that? Like, you say, I want a 3-bedroom, 4-bathroom, or 4-bathroom, 2-bedroom, whatever your combo is, home, single-family home with a pool in downtown St. Pete. You know how many homes there are? 8. And then you set an alert and you wait for the 9th home to show up. This is not like there are 20,000 homes waiting for you and you're trying to narrow it down next to a coffee shop. But again, like, I just, like, don't believe that some things it makes sense. Like, that search on an Amazon search would make sense because, like, it will intuitively, people can type what they're looking for and, like, there's some micro adjustments for you. On a home, like, it's the price, bed, bath, square footage, pool, like, few other amenities, and that's your search. I mean, who types English sentences for that? I think I would be totally annoyed that it's not a drop down. You know what I mean? So who wants to think about it? I think it's like a stretch.
What do you think about the next phase of that, which is a chatbot for like a customer service chatbot? So maybe there's several IDX providers right now that you can kind of build custom IDX sites where you can say, hey, ask me a question. And the chatbot literally is a AI-powered chatbot that can either be for lead capture or lead nurture or answering some basic questions. Do you think the AI manifestation inside of a lead capture opportunity is more beneficial than just a, kind of a narrowing search opportunity?
Outside of real estate, maybe, right? Like, inside of real estate, say you're a real estate agent, Sharran.com, right? I go there. Somehow, first of all, you know how hard it is for your customer to not go to Zillow and come to your website. Somehow you convince me to go to your website. Am I going to just text you or am I going to, like, talk to your chatbot? I think that's that fundamental question that we have to ask ourselves. But if you ask me, like, is the chatbot capable of, like, responding in a meaningful way? The answer is yes. I think there are technologies out there right now that will take your FAQs and convert it into a full-blown AI assistant for you. That's a representation of you, right? In fact, at Real, we do a lot of that, right? I do think there is a piece of chat technology that could work really well, but you do need a lot of scale on the other side. So imagine you are like a big agent and has, like, have like 40,000 agents, 40,000 buyers or sellers in your database, right? There is no way you're calling them and annoying them and blasting text messages and stuff like that, right? But you do have history of what they were looking for, and, like, you have some reasonable amount of data. Like, let's just define what's reasonable. Like, at some point they were a buyer or a seller, and at some point they were looking for a home with bed bath configuration, right? That's all. Let's just say that's all. And then the area, like the geo radius, right? Now imagine that tied up with an IDX feed, and now you're texting everybody saying, hey, this new property came on. Let me know if you want to like get more details. And that's it, right? So everybody gets a relevant text message. First of all, it's really important. It's not like, yeah, are you in the market to buy property? It's not that, right? It's a relevant this property, and it comes a little bit from your playbooks, right? Where you send them a property and you say, let me know if you want more information. You're not sending them everything, right? That starts the conversation. But here is where it goes one step above, is the response is also intercepted by the AI, and it keeps going back and forth without you like participating. And at some point it hits that threshold where it becomes warm. So you can analyze the response and understand the sentiment behind it, saying, hey man, like, no, not interested right now. And then you can have like some follow-up tuned messages that just AI just keeps sending back as if you're texting, because that's what it's good at. It's sounding like a human being. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, but it sounds like a human being, right? And then it's warm enough to say, hey, Sharran, there's actually a real buyer ready to go. And then you take over the conversation.
Tell me your perspective on this. Shouldn't a piece of artificial intelligence on a chat site, call it a customer service chat site, etc., should that piece of artificial intelligence identify itself as artificial intelligence, or and then say, hey, I am Sharran AI, I'm going to do this? Or do you think that a consumer on the site assumes that there is a person? Is the identification that the person you're talking to, like, you and I call the Turing test, right? Like, do they identify themselves, and what is your kind of feeling around?
Oh man, this is the hardest question, I think. Is because, yes, you feel there is a sense of deception when it's not the person sending you messages about something that you're interested in. But then you can ask yourself this question, is that if the content that is sent to you is meaningful and you found it helpful, does it matter if Sharran actually sent it or a machine sent it? Let me add another dynamic to this. So there's Sharran, and then Sharran has an executive assistant, and then there is AI. So imagine your executive assistant is now texting everybody in behalf of you, saying, hey, Sharran, like, I found a new property. Would that be acceptable? Or it has to be disclosed that it's an EA, not Sharran?
I don't know, though. Like, I will tell you my position on this. My position is I just prefer to disclose everything. I prefer to be like, hey, I'm Sharran's bot. I can do a bunch of things. I can't do it, I will personally notify Sharran for you so that you don't have to. Some version of that way. I prefer it that way, but I don't know how else to do it. Even sometimes on my Instagram, my team will look at it, but if there's anybody on my DMs that responds without, that is not me, they will identify themselves and saying, hey, I am X on Sharran's team. FYI, I'm just catching up on this. I'll get you X result. So I don't know if that's just I think it's a preference, but I'm more curious about, I think in today's world of almost like impersonation, I just feel like you just want to tell the truth in a lot of ways.
I 100% agree with you. Saying what it is always better than anything else, right? But I will say, like, I don't know the answer to this, but I think the answer is the same as if you're going to disclose that you're an executive assistant and not Sharran, then you should disclose that I'm an AI and not Sharran. But if you're not disclose that you're an executive assistant, then I think AI technology, if not today, very near future, will be able to emulate your executive assistant for some tasks, right? So just because it's a digital, let's call it a digital being or a smart, it's not AGI yet, right? Like it's not as good as a human being, but it's very conceivable that it will be there in the next 10 to 15 years. And at that point, if you use that as a true assistant, like, I think the rules should be the same, in my opinion. However, I will say that I will not be surprised if there is government regulations that kick in that disclose that you have to say this is an AI technology talking to you. Like, I will not be surprised if that happens at all. It's the same reason when you're recording a phone call, you're supposed to disclose that you're recording a phone call. Same thing.
So this is one question that I bet folks are having right now in their heads, and I'd love for you to kind of bring us home on this one, which is most real estate professionals, folks in the real estate, whoever is thinking about this, from an implementation perspective, they have different technological capabilities. And I know that there's somebody here that's saying, oh yeah, I know how to implement that piece of artificial intelligence, or get the chatbot up and running on my site. But at the same time, you have somebody that's like, man, this feels so out of my league. Like I finally got like a lead gen page going. Now you're asking me to do all of this. Kind of what advice do you have for that person? Is it a find a who to do this, or like what advice do you have for the person?
Yeah, I think finding a who, or I think finding a who can find you the tools that you need. There's always like value to time, right? So how do you value your own time? So if something is going to take you 10 hours and you can make, say, $1,000 in those 10 hours, are you going to pay somebody less than $1,000 that will get you the same outcome? I think it's probably, that's how I would make that decision. I would say sometimes it's even not possible for you to catch up because your background is different. In that case, it's cost of doing.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I want to give the people the gift of that, saying you don't need to understand and know everything. Like you don't need to understand the how of everything. That is not your responsibility. What you want is to know that the thing that is working has an implementation in your business in some way. And if you're thinking about a phrase, let me give you one. Pritesh, I think about this often. When I'm encountered with an opportunity, I think about, is this a acquire the skill or hire the skill? And I always think this is the hire or acquire. And it sometimes you may be like, hey, I bought these pair of shoes. I'm going to actually paint them myself. That is like, and you do it, but that's an acquire the skill, right? But sometimes you may just be like, I can spend 18 hours trying to acquire this and it's not going to go anywhere. So be really honest with yourself on the idea of, hey, when you're coming up on an opportunity, don't always think that there's only one way to do it, which is acquiring the skill. Hiring the skill is not a bad option either.
I would like to end at that. It's like, if you do hire somebody, it still takes intelligence to decide that you got to hire somebody. So it's not less smart to hire somebody. It's actually almost more smart to hire somebody and value your time.